sale and that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. I have a couple of people that I know have appeared at other hearings before, but for purposes of this record, if you can introduce yourselves. Ms. Hogue, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Hillary Hogue, and I am a member of the Guardianship Improvement Task Force here supporting Dr. Gaskaib and his family throughout the world. Thank you. I'll put myself on mute.
Thank you. And the person signed in as Ray, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Ray Contreras.
All right. Good morning. And there's somebody signed in as Ryan Fisher. If that person would, you don't need to turn on your camera if you don't want to, but click your microphone and just tell us who you are, please. All right, the person that signed in as Ryan Fisher, maybe can't hear me or can't find his microphone button. And then we have Mr. Walzer there. Good morning.
Morning, Your Honor.
If you introduce yourself, please.
I'm with ABC Action News in Tampa.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Miller, we're here on the amended motion to sell the real property and enter into a like-kind 1031 exchange.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll make a motion to exclude these people. They're not part of the case. And Dr. Daske, pursuant to the statute, has a right of privacy and has the right to invoke that persons not concerned with the case be excluded.
Okay, well, looks like Ms. Hogue wants to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'll respectfully cite Florida Probate Rule 5.540, which states clearly that all hearings under Chapter 744 and under Section 393.12 shall be open unless the alleged incapacitated person, adjudicated ward, or person alleged to have a developmental disability elects to have the hearing closed. An election to close the hearing may be made before the hearing by filing a written notice. Subject to the court's approval, an election to close or reopen the hearing may be done. So I looked at the case this morning and I did not see anything filed to have this hearing closed.
Okay, well, but Ms. Hogue, the last part, oh, there's a little bit of an echo there. I'm hearing myself. I'm sorry. The last part of that rule that you kind of cut off, though, that does allow for the court, subject to the court's approval, to close the hearing at a motion made during the hearing, does it not? The end of that.
Well, it does, but Your Honor, no disrespect, and thank you for letting me speak again. It does say that something has to be filed in writing. I do this on 5 days a week. I'm at court hearings virtually and in person, and it's very rare that I'm excluded from a hearing.
Miller.
Justice requires transparency.
We're exercising
If everybody would mute again, please, because there's some feedback, some echo.
we're exercising Dr. D's right to have this hearing closed. That's absolute and should be followed by the court.
This is not about a medical or a financial. It is about a sale of a property, and we are here to make sure that there is an accurate appraisal that was done by a New York certified appraiser.
All right, Mr.
We don't want to know any information other than what's in the best interest of the doctor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Contreras.
Good morning, Your Honor. Are you aware of a hearing in October in New York regarding this building? The state of New York filed a complaint for building an illegal Asian sex massage parlor. There's a hearing scheduled for October 27th, 2022 at 8:30 in the morning.
Well, Mr.
And we
Contreras,
believe-
just a moment. Now, certainly I'm about to make a decision on Mr. Miller's motion to close the hearing, but for you all to be here as observers, if I leave the hearing open, is certainly welcome. But I, as far as making the court aware of things that aren't of record in this case, I don't think that's appropriate. Okay.
Yes, we understand. We will not speak.
If you allow me, I will submit it into the docket regarding the complaint filed in New York by the state of New York against the building for with this pending hearing on October 27th, 2022 at 8:30 in the morning.
But as far as today, Mr. Contreras and I'm sure Mr. Walzer, we will be muted and we will not speak. We have respect for this court and we thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hogue, let me ask you quickly before you mute again. Do you know who the individual Ryan Fisher is? Because he never did speak up. Do you know who that is?
No, I really have never heard of that name before. No, I don't.
Mr. Contreras, you don't know either?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right.
Your Honor, we're going to be discussing financial information on this. And it's very clear that any hearings pursuant to 744 have the right to be closed by the ward.
That is not the case, Mr. Miller, respectfully. This is,
Ms. Hogue, just a moment, please. All right, Mr. Miller, there are a couple of issues with this. Number one, what's being addressed today is an amended motion that is a public part of this file. The records, the financial information that's being discussed is in the motion that's already of public record that anybody can obtain.
Not the appraisal and not
Well,
specific
that's
information.
what I was going to ask you about. There is no, the appraisal was never filed. So
We're going to speak about that.
all right. Well,
And it's not ours, we need to discuss too, so that he can.
This is all private information. It's very clear that any hearing in this 744 should be closed by the court. And I'm asking that it be closed.
okay. Give me one moment.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, rule 5.540B does say, again, everybody mute please, I'm hearing that echo again. Thank you. Mr. Contreras, it looks like you're not muted yet, but I'm not hearing the echo anymore, so that's okay. 5.540B, an election to close the hearing may be made before the hearing by filing a written notice. Subject to the court's approval, an election to close or reopen a hearing may be made at any time during the hearing by oral or written motion. Given that there was no prior written notice filed, under the circumstances here that, you know, it's an amended motion that is part of the public record, the motion to close the hearing is denied. I'm going to leave the hearing open.
I'll make a motion as we go along because we're going to get into specific information about strategy in regards to a buyer that should not be public.
Okay,
His net worth.
Yeah, and other
It's in the
things.
account.
Okay,
okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Miller.
call Mr. Lancaster.
Mr. Lancaster, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Lancaster, for the record, give us your name and your professional occupation and address.
My name's John Lancaster. I'm a tax attorney. We're certified by the Polk Law. I practice with a law firm Clark Campbell Lancaster, work for the there. And my office location is 500 South Florida Avenue, Lakeland, Florida, 33801, Suite 800.
And have you been hired by the Guardian to do certain work in this particular case?
Yes, sir.
And what's that work?
To look at the idea of leading up tax implications on sale and transfer of properties
Okay, and where is that property located?
in New York.
And what's the sale price for?
5.1 million some dollars, the contract
Okay.
attached.
And what's the purpose after that the property is sold? Are you recommending that a 1031 tax-free exchange be initiated?
The ultimate goal is to sell the property without incurring any income tax consequences, gain, or any net investment income tax, or any other state of New York income tax. And in order to do so, there's a procedure in the Revenue Code, which state of New York follows, called a like-kind exchange, 1031, a delayed exchange in which you sell a piece of property and replace it with like-kind property, replacement property.
Have you reviewed the petition
Yes,
and the amended petition?
yes,
And are you in agreement with those things that are being asked?
yes.
Okay, I'd like to close the hearing at this time because I want to talk about the appraisal.
Okay. As far as the appraisal is concerned, I know you said there may be some other things with regard to the buyer, but with regard to the appraisal, again, leave the hearing open, so that request is denied.
Okay. Are you aware that there's an appraisal on the property?
Yes, I am.
And do you know how much that was for?
Yes,
How much was it?
it was 3.8. 3.8. $3,880,000,
Okay. And the sale price is how much?
over 5.1 million.
Okay. In your estimation, is this in the best interests of the client, Mr. or Dr. Deskahib?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have anything further. Your Honor?
Okay. Mr. Lancaster, if you would stand by just in case I have any questions as we go through here. All right.
Okay. Call
Uh,
Ms.
What's that?
DeVivo.
Mr. Evil, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Ma'am, your name,
Vicky DeVivo, Professional Guardians LLC,
your professional address,
Post Office Box 1000, Winter Haven 33882.
and how long have you been the guardian for Dr. Deskahib?
I've been his guardian since 2016, Your Honor.
And Dr. Deskahib owns certain properties in New York, is that correct?
Correct.
And this is one of them.
Yes,
And you determined that it's in his best interest to sell this, is that correct?
that's correct.
And that's for many different reasons, one of which is the real estate prices in New York are fluctuating greatly, is that correct?
Yes,
And you're afraid of them going down, is that also correct?
yes,
Also, finally, that they're dealing with tenants in New York has been problematic mainly because of the laws of New York, is that also correct?
absolutely.
And at this time, I need to discuss a confidential matter that I don't want to be public knowledge.
Okay. What I'm going to do for a moment is, because I don't know what this is, and I need to determine whether it would be appropriate to close the hearing with regard to this part. I'm going to mute this microphone for a moment so I can hear this and then determine whether this part of the hearing should be closed. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, with regards to the last few moments that were on the record but muted, I find that that portion of the hearing should be closed given the nature of what was presented to the court there. All right. It looks like Ms. Abraham, who is the in the Inspector General's office of the Clerk of Court's office, has just joined in the lobby, so I'm going to admit her.
And we have no objection to her being
Okay,
in this.
right. Okay, Ms. Abraham, good morning.
Good morning. I apologize. I had some technical difficulties.
Okay, understood. We have a number of people that are virtual, and as you can see on your screen, some people here in person, and we are on the record. Now, Ms. Abraham, was there anything the clerk's office needed to speak to with regards to this hearing, or are you just observing?
I did want to address one item.
You want the court to go ahead and hear from Ms. Abraham, or do you want to finish with Ms.?
If we close it and let her address an item.
Well, now I don't know how I can do that, because since she's virtual, I can't hear from her and be muted as to everybody else.
Why not?
There's no way to mute individual. They can, I can mute their side, but I can't select who can hear us and who can't. We're either muted or we're not.
May I address her?
Sure.
Ms. Abram, is what you're going to address something confidential?
It is about the petition, the amended petition. So I'm not sure if that is a confidential.
Well, if it's regarding information that's already contained in the amended petition that's of public record, then I mean, if it's information that's outside of the petition, then I need to find a way to address whether this should be partially closed as to this hearing. But if it's contained within the petition, then that's public record already.
It's contained within the petition.
Okay, it'd be public record by your order.
All right.
Okay,
Well, not by my order. That
by your determination.
right. All right, Ms. Abraham, go ahead.
So the only item of concern is that the amended petition does state that the sales price of the apartment complex is supported by an appraisal. However, that appraisal was not attached to the petition. So we just want to see, based on the court's satisfaction, whether the appraisal needs to be filed with the court.
Okay. All right. And we'll get back to that. There's already been some discussion about that before you were able to sign in, but we will certainly be coming back to that. But thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Miller, do you want to continue with Ms. DeVivo's testimony? Was there any further?
Yes, are we closing the hearing?
Well, it was closed with regard to the part we just discussed. So I don't know what.
If she's going to testify to that, then I need to have it closed.
Okay. All right. The information that was proffered to the court by Mr. Miller that the court determined should be closed. The court's going to be hearing some testimony on that for the next few moments. So I'm going to just mute because this portion of the hearing will again be closed because it relates to what Mr. Miller proffered that I already determined should be closed. So I'm going to mute for a moment. Thank you. Okay, we are back to the open portion of this hearing. Mr. Miller,
Okay.
anything further from Mr. Vivo?
Yes, may I speak to Ms. Abrams quickly?
Sure, go ahead.
Ms. Abrams, prior
Yes.
testimony was about the appraisal. I'll go over that again for your benefit. Is that all right?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Vivo, was there an appraisal done on this building?
Yes, it was
How much did it come out to be?
3.88 million.
And when was that?
That was done, it was contracted in February, and I think it was completed in March of this year.
Okay. And who did it?
It was done by Rogers and Taylors. There's local appraisers in New York, Manhattan area.
Okay. And do you believe that that's a correct appraisal?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, I do believe it's correct.
And you're glad that you're able to get this sold for a much greater price?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Vivo, let me ask you, the amended petition says that it's in the best interest of the ward because of the cost and expense of maintaining this building. But if it's a like-kind exchange and he's going to then be owning other property, how does it benefit the ward to sell this and purchase replacement property where you're gonna have the same, not the same exact amount, but more cost and expense, which is why the petitioner alleges it's in the best interest of the ward to sell this property?
Let me have Mr. Lancaster on that, answer that question.
Okay, all
And
right.
then I'll have her answer that.
Okay.
Mr. Lancaster, can you answer that question?
Yes, by selling out of New York, one, and replacing it with property potentially, most likely in Florida, that's what our goal is to, one, reduce the state of New York, the state tax, and that's there. State of New York doesn't have a clawback. By buying replacement property, we're looking at going with a company that would be able to do a triple net lease, which would be just where they would be holding on a property that the tenant is responsible for all the costs and maintenance and upkeep. And we have spoken with brokerage firms that would represent finding replacement commercial property. Items that we've been discussion with has been either gas stations, restaurants, or other strip malls and commercial centers, all being commercial related type pieces of property that have long-term leases. They represent people, companies that go out and develop the property, build it, and then get funded by a buyer such as a like-kind exchange proceeds, because they don't want to recognize the gain, but they want a triple net lease with a guaranteed return. Yes, there's always a risk of any tenant going into bankruptcy or something like that, but that's why we're going to go to more established tenant that would be, but we have that risk in New York currently.
And those properties are being looked at in Florida, is that correct?
Correct.
And so significantly, the risk factor is reduced tremendously by this like-kind exchange. Is that correct?
Well, the risk factor is one, New York, but Florida is definitely growing, and that's, I mean, that's a judgment call as to what.
And this doesn't require management of tenants in rental buildings that with dealing with rental laws in New York, which are onerous. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, you are going to be with a triple net lease, not managing 24/7 property. You are going to be using a commercial tenant in that location.
Does that answer your question, Your Honor?
I believe it does.
Okay, Mr. Vivo, do you have anything to add?
Well, the building was built around 1920. And so there's a lot of maintenance involved as well. A lot of security issues right now in New York with crime and everything as well. But I understand we wouldn't have if he were to pass away, he's 85, we also wouldn't have to do an additional probate in New York. So we would have the expense saved for that. But like I said, there has been a lot of maintenance involved in the buildings. So it would also save us those funds. We would have local properties. So then just like the 1031 exchange. And as I understand it, the family is on board through their attorney with the sale. It was represented in the petition. I think they're in agreement with him trying to sell the apartment building in New York.
Right. Mr. Miller, can you speak to that? Because I was really expecting Mr. Katz to be here today.
Well, he sent me an email that he consented to this. And he's on board with this. As a matter of fact, it benefits his clients tremendously that if Dr. D was to pass away through a ancillary, it would have to be an ancillary probate action in New York, they'd be stuck having to try to sell a building in New York.
Right. Okay.
And in doing the transaction, we're looking at using a qualified intermediary that is reputable, like an Old Republic title exchange service, somebody that has large number of holdings to be able to transfer the proceeds to a replacement property that we would work with a broker that searches out properties for us.
Right. Okay. All right, anything further, Mr. Miller?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So based on everything that I've heard, the testimony I've heard, subject to my personal review of the appraisal, I need to see a copy of that.
Okay.
But I've heard testimony of who did it, when it was done, and the
Right.
how. So certainly that, yes, Ms. Hope.
And I apologize for interjecting, but excuse me.
Your Honor, I've got to
I
object.
have to,
She does not have standing to appear.
I never said I
She
did,
may be
Mr.
an
Miller.
observer,
Okay.
but
Mr. Miller,
she has no right or ability to comment or to make suggestions.
Mr. Miller, the buyer of the building in New York he's a flipper. Last month, he flipped a
Your
property
Honor.
identical for
Ms.
$2
Hope.
million more. I will
Ms.
be
Hope.
quiet, but
Ms.
where
Hope,
is
I'm
the
gonna-
appraisal? I'll be quiet. I apologize.
Okay. Based on the testimony, again, subject to my review of the appraisal, so I'm going to need to.
I'll have it sent over today by Honor.
Then, and it's not that I question the testimony, I just need to see it for myself. So, but subject to my review of the appraisal, given that the purchase price exceeds that appraisal, given the benefits of the award that I've heard here about, reductions because there would no longer be payment of New York taxes. It'll save, if Dr. Doske were to pass away, there will no longer be a need for ancillary administration in New York. Maintenance and upkeep on a building that was built in the 1920s. All of these things will be savings that will benefit the ward in the court's view, particularly in light of the fact that the purchase price exceeds the appraised value, which again, I need to review the appraisal for myself. In light of that, I do find that the sale of this property under the conditions that have been discussed today is appropriate in the best interest of the ward. I will grant that amended petition and authorize the sale of the property and the 1031 exchange.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I think that this has been sent over to you. But
The
this
proposed order?
proposed order that you can have. Thank
Okay.
you, Your Honor.
All right. Yeah, this is formatted for electronic signature, so it's probably there.
It's in there.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully that appraisal will be on the record. Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good day.
Just a moment. The court reporter has a question. I think she was asking how Mr. Contreras spells his name. Mr. Contreras, would you mind letting the court reporter know that?
Sure. The New York City complaint, is that going to be talked about in this
No.
hearing?
No, it is not.
Human trafficking is a serious crime.
Well, Mr. Contreras, unfortunately, you all are not parties to this case. I
understand.
can't, this is not set before the court today. This is about the sale of the property. So that's not something that I can hear about today. Okay.
Will you allow a public record to be submitted into the docket regarding this hearing in October in New York regarding this human trafficking illegal Asian massage parlor?
Object.
Well,
I mean, this is human trafficking we're talking about here, happening at the building owned by this building.
They've moved out. This
They
is
have
not
no
an issue.
standing.
all right.
But there's a pending hearing in New York.
This month.
Okay. All right. This is something the court had no information about prior to today. The only thing.
Well, we'd like to give you information.
All right.
We'd like to give you information. We have
They're
nothing to
trying to
gain
sell the
other
building
than,
to get out of trouble in New York. They're in trouble in New York and they're trying to sell the building to get out of trouble. Simple as that.
and I hope that appraisal will be on the court docket.
And Your Honor, all due respect, we know you don't have this information, and at this point, it's really hard for anybody to provide you information because Keith Miller and Peggy are the only people in control of this person's estate. But this is a public
Besides
record.
Nikki Decker, who's on the record as the guardian.
We just want to share with you a public complaint filed in New York with a hearing set for October 27th, 2022 at 8:30 in the morning regarding building a illegal massage rooms regarding to a business called Do You Asian Sex Massage Parlor.
All right, Mr. Contreras, again, it's not appropriate for the court to hear about all this today, okay? This is, and, you know,
Yes.
it's not information of record. I've already made my ruling with regard to the amended petition to sell the property and the 1031 exchange. Mr. Contreras, the court reporter was asking if you would share with her how to spell your name for the record, so she has
Sure.
that correct.
It's first name is R-E-Y, last name is Contreras, C-O-N-T-R-E-R-A-S.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Have a good day. Take care.